nobody gets in real estate for data sheets. They get into real estate to acquire wealth, to build their future.
Yeah.
And through that comes a lot of frustration, pipe bursting in the middle of the night, emergency. People, it's truly a people business. It's about managing people and expectations.
Have you been thinking about buying your first rental property for some time, or do you already own a bunch of properties? Well, fellow investors, you found the right location to listen and learn from others' successes. Welcome to The Very Real Estate Effect with your host, Axel Monsaint.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing and entrepreneurship right here in Quebec. And today, I'm saying this because my guest, Laurent Soulé. Hello, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
You started in business, went to real estate, and then business and real estate. And I'm really excited to hear more about how you started. And before we get into it, to everybody who's listening, you'll want to share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. And I realized that between the number of people who listen to the show and the subscribers, there's a big gap. That's all I'm asking you. I'm not asking you for anything else. Is just please subscribe to the show so it'll support me in getting better and better and better at getting great guests so we can all learn and discover. So here we go. Now, Laurent, before we started, and Guana, doing a recap, you shared with me that you sold your first business at the age of 16 years old. What? Can we go back onto that?
Yeah. Well, first, Axel, thank you very much for having me. It's a great opportunity to put myself a little bit more into the public eye. Yes. Always had a little bit of an entrepreneur background. Came from a family of hustlers, auctions, finding opportunities where people would not look. So yeah, coming back to your point, 16 years old, I don't think I sold the business, but I was coming back for summers from university. I went to university in British Columbia.
Okay.
So when I would come back for summers...
Wait, you were in university at 16 years old?
No.
Just after?
Okay. First business sold maybe 17, then 18.
Okay, 18.
First year.
Okay, fair enough.
First year of university. I came back for the summer and needed to justify making some money. So I could not accept working for, what was it back then? About $7.15 an hour. My time was more valuable. So I ended up door knocking on nearby on streets and offered landscaping.
Nice.
So I built a very nice customer list database. And at the end of the summer, I actually had 13 deals lined up for the next summer.
Okay.
But I didn't want to do...
you didn't want to do that the next summer.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I ended up selling my customer list to, at the time, the biggest landscaper on the south shore of Montreal, which I won't name, but now has many parking lots of red trucks.
Okay.
Very nice. And at the time, he was delighted to buy that. So I sold the customer list for, what was it? I think about $1,000 back then. It was just... transferring and passing off the wealth and what I had built. And I discovered that, people are willing to value what I do, and opportunities truly are everywhere when you start looking. So it always stayed behind my mind. And coming back to the purpose of the podcast, for me, real estate has always been the context.
Okay.
So you live...
What do you mean by context?
The context in itself. Nobody gets in real estate for data sheets. They get into real estate to acquire wealth, to build their future. Yeah. And through that comes a lot of frustration, pipe bursting in the middle of the night, emergency. People. It's truly a people business. It's about managing people and expectations. So the context means that there was a lot of frustration being built there. And I discovered that some of my boldest moves were truly nurtured through frustration. So to the landscaping, I didn't accept the $7 an hour wage. So I decided to go for more. And then afterwards started a web agency. Ended up doing the same thing. Got a big customer. It was too big for me to handle. So either I would scale or either I decided to sell the contract. So I sold the contract to another agency, and then I started another business that was a side business for I had a big phase where I loved vintage bikes, vintage road
Yeah.
bikes. And it was
Like motorbikes or bicycles?
bicycles.
Okay, bicycles.
Bicycles.
Okay.
So Marinoni, Pinarellos, Colnagos, Campagnolo, Cioce, and all of these nice brands. And the expense started becoming significant really quick in between the tools, the bikes, the personal collection, because you buy a nice bike, you want to keep it.
Yeah. You want to use it once in a while. And then it's like, does it make sense for me to keep this if I use it 3 times a year?
And then once you hit 20 bikes in your personal connection,
it takes a lot of space.
I actually rented a storage and I had a little place for myself, my man cave, which started becoming a significant expense. So I started business in order to write off some expenses and the collection. So you feature online, you learn lots of things. Frustration of back then it was the spouse that had to deal with the living room with 7 bikes on a constant day. But it was great. You always have a choice.
Yeah.
And so it always came back from frustration. And so truly property management was the context where I don't think there's another business. Well, there's probably are, but in property management, you have a lot of frustration from water pipes.
Oh, for sure.
Everything.
Yeah.
So it always comes, and through all of that frustration, I started discovering patterns. I started seeing patterns. I started seeing how can we do things in a more efficient, in a better way, and to address that pain, because I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was doing it for myself. So,
okay, wait, hold on. Because you already, let's unpack this a little bit. I want to go back to what you said earlier about at the end of my first summer of doing landscaping, I realized I didn't want it was, it seemed like it was fun. You made some good money. You mowed the lawns, you did whatever you had to do. And then you actually took the initiative to sell the client list. Just that, a lot of people would have just said, I'm not going to do this summer. I'm going to call them and say, find somebody else. Thank you. Bye. No. You already recognize the value of, hey, I have a list here of 15 people who want their lawns mowed. They will all pay $300, or $500 for the summer. There is $25K of revenue right here. And you're able to sell that. I don't know what the number is worth. And that's not really the point, but you already recognize that. Then you said, I took a marketing contract. But for a big account, I can do it. So I sold it to somebody else. And I'm like, as you said that, I was like, oh, you as a wholesaler in real estate, you put a property under contract, then you go sell the contract, you make $50K as a wedge in between, and off you go. I mean, you already started with a strong entrepreneurial driven mindset. And to set the stage, you said you had, or the family had a bit of, background in auctioneers, and do you think there was anything that miraculously transferred from the rest of the family to you to already have that skill at that young age?
Of course. Great question. It actually builds up on one of my core principle, one of the 5 core principle pillars of my mindset. But yes, thank you to my grandfather, my mom, my dad, my family, doing auctions at a young age.
They were auctioneers?
Not auctioneers. They would go and seize opportunity. Opportunities. Buy things much cheaper. Morsel it, split it, buy lots of 500 lamps and sell them individually. And through that, created opportunities. And so, yes, I recognized the value of a customer list early. Probably not recognized it enough for what it was worth, but for me, that $1,000 was amazing. Instead of just closing the
otherwise, you would have just thrown it out and said to these people, "Sorry, find somebody else for next year." You made money out of that list.
It gave me 1 more month of drinking.
Well, in university, that's how you justify it. It's fine.
It was the need, the frustration of how am I going to spend the next few months. So it created another opportunity on that. But yes, auctioneer. And that actually, it was fun because when I was much younger, less than 10 years old, I went to an auction house in the old part of Montreal at the CBSA, the Canadian Border Service Agency. And 25-ish years afterwards, I ended up managing that building.
No.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Full circle.
Full circle. So it's amazing. The building had completely changed. They didn't do the auctions anymore, but it was just stepping back into these memories where I didn't even remember I went there. It's true. The first day on my job, I'm like, I remember this somewhere down deep.
Yeah.
Yes, with my grandpa. We came here for an auction many years ago. And I'm like, well, I'm actually now I have all the keys to every door here.
Yeah.
The property manager.
And I heard they have a pretty interesting vault over there. Huh? I think they don't store it on site anymore.
They don't have it anymore, but
Okay.
yes, they don't have it anymore. There's a great movie about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
when
the big
Robert De
heist.
Niro has made a great
Yeah.
movie in the building you're managing.
Yeah, exactly. You did something properly.
Yes.
And just for those who are listening, just to be clear, this is the building that's on McGill College at the corner of Wellington. It goes straight into it and it stops there. And it's this huge building.
patrimonial. In my humble opinion, it is
It's one of the nicest building in town.
the nicest patrimonial federal
Yeah,
building.
I agree.
In the old part of Montreal.
And it's just the sheer scale of it. It's okay. So you ended up doing property management for that building.
yeah.
And so that's a contract with the federal government.
Through the biggest provider of real estate management in Canada. Yes.
Wow.
The RP1 contract. Yeah.
What? Okay. Okay. So then we'll jump back to that. But now, okay. So your family had a bit of background, and as you said, seeing opportunity when others didn't.
Yeah.
You ended up with a living room full of bicycles, so you ended up renting a storage, and then out of frustration, and you've used that word twice, and I really like it because people underestimate the number of businesses that have been created out of a frustration for themselves. And they're like, if I'm feeling this, how many other people are feeling that? So where'd you go from there?
Oh, good question. Good question. So many levels of frustration in life on so many different things. Now I see them as opportunity, and I'm thankful for them. Their lesson in life, you either win or you learn.
Exactly. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Yes.
So I've learned significant amount, and it cost me money to learn. And this is why you're doing this. This is why all of the podcasts are online and sharing their knowledge, is that they want to prevent other people from doing these mistakes and having to pay for it themselves.
Yeah.
So you're entirely right to the frustration behind it, the driver to great innovation. But I've lived through many different things, and that's my current venture at the moment with the 3D scanning. It's truly bridging that frustration for the property manager. It's about buying back their time.
Okay, so wait. Let's go into this. I know roughly of the story and what you're doing, but we need to explain it very clearly. So, and then we'll go back to the rest of your real estate stuff. But what is it that you're working on now?
At the moment, I'm working on, well, first, I'm a full-time dad.
Yes.
So this is
That's a lot of work.
main priority. And from there requires I value being able to pick up my daughter at school on a nice sunny day and doing it.
Fun activity after school.
Reasonable
100%.
time, and being able to bring the bikes. And so this for me is my main driver. And then afterwards, everything comes back to that. So it requires me to have control over my schedule. So I cannot do that in a 9 to 5, or yet I have not found a flexible enough employer to do that and pay more than $7.06 an hour. So I need to set my own value per hour, what I perceive, and not limited to what the market's going to pay for that, willing to pay for that. So at the moment, I've built out of frustration a 3D mapping platform where imagine a Google Street View, but for your boiler room in your property. So it's a virtual walkthrough.
Yeah.
It's a 3D scan of everything in there, which becomes, you can embed tags. It's a LiDAR scan. It's 3D 4K resolution. And you can put so much information on that platform that it becomes an operating manual, a product catalog of your actual property.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest frustration as a property manager is where is that information? Where is that knowledge? It's having your
Wait, I just want to be clear. The frustration of where is that knowledge of where is that red pipe in the boiler room?
Or where are your risers of your water up to your 6th floor?
Okay.
Where is the shut-off valve? Where what's the dimension in between? Can we upgrade our boiler room and put a new system, a new energy efficient system in there? It's all the knowledge that few specific resource in your team have. And when these resources end up retiring, or leaving
Okay.
the company.
Yeah.
Then they go
That
out-
knowledge walks out the door after 30 years and you've lost half of your maintenance capabilities.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then it's the onboarding of the new resource that takes
Yeah.
an incredible amount of time. So
Yeah.
it's all that frustration through the property management of that patrimonial building that made me want to bridge that gap and say, okay, how do I capture that knowledge in real time? How do I create something that becomes valuable for the next property manager that
Mhm.
comes in without the guesswork, without having to handle that
Okay.
2 a.m. call as to where's the shut-off valve?
Okay. But I love, okay, let's stay on that shut off valve. Okay.
Okay.
Because we all know how water is damaging. So you do a 3D scan of a building and then you're able to, label, I guess, virtually, like this is the water intake valve. This is the water out valve. This is the main panel switch and all this. Okay. That's great. But then you just said the human element of the maintenance person has been there for 30 years and he knows that beginning of March, you need to do a flush out of the system because on the 3rd floor, there's that kinky pipe. And if you don't do this, by the time April comes, you have a buildup and you get a flood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just making up the story,
Absolutely.
but it's a reasonable
It
scenario.
is.
Now, how do you, because what I want to bridge as a gap is the difference between the physical world of what we see and taking the experience of someone's head and how it impacts the job.
Yep.
So how do you do that?
Well, that's the difference between a picture of that shut-off valve and actually putting it on a platform that evolves over time.
Okay.
So this is one of the biggest trend at the moment is AI,
Mhm.
artificial intelligence, and how it's going to allow for all of that data that it's too much for one person to input or to
Yeah.
sort through or to look at when there's water flowing down from the 6th floor. So it allows you through a platform to condense all of that data and being able to pull out the right information at the right time. And a little bit, it's not there yet, but in a predictive manner. Building are going to be self-managing. So in May, when there's that, in April, when that flush is required, it's automatically going to pop up a comment from coming back in the days that this valve needs to be open and flushed once a year. So it's automatically going to bring it up in terms of the required action. And it's going to probably ultimately tag the right service provider in there. So the right service provider is going to get an email saying, hey, this valve needs to be flushed at this location. Here's the walkthrough, exactly the numbers of meter, the step the guy needs to take to
make
go
a left,
there.
make a right, go down the steps. It's that door. That's the punch-in code.
Exactly.
And
use the key, the punching code is there. So the property manager does not need to book a call and when are you going to be able to come in? The key, I need to be there to open the door. No.
Okay. You create a platform to have the baseline for all of this.
First, and then afterwards, the contractor can actually input the note in the system. So I've serviced the valve today, and then afterwards, it needs to the valve was hard to turn, so it would need to be replaced. You can do a hat quotation. So then the same service provider or other provider, plumbers, are going to be able to receive that request for quotation, code directly from a walkthrough with accurate measurement up to an inch, provide their submission. So the property management, once he receives all of that information or needs to address the problem, is going to have all of the information, the time lapse of when was it serviced, when was the last time, what issue they had, who did it. So it just becomes a true knowledge base on the building. And that knowledge base is 360 days a year, 365 days a year accessible, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and from anywhere in the world. So you don't need to know how to manage a building anymore. You just need to know how to click. So the onboarding of a new property manager, we have a customer, he went from about a 28-week onboarding of a new property management to doing it in less than a week in terms of hours of training on the platform. He was just able to grasp the information, read through the notes from the previous property manager. So the transition, the building, the history of the building stays there. From the patrimonial building in the old port, I only marked about 3% of his history. And I'm delighted. I'm honored to have had 3% of his time. But I recognize that there would be somebody else. After.
And then it's about that transition because you're not going to be there forever. It's just how do you make sure to make it as seamless as possible for everyone?
What I'm proud of, where do I leave it? The knowledge I've acquired through that frustration, through that water pipe. How do I make sure you don't have to deal with it later on?
Yeah.
So this is my project.
So now you're going into buildings and you're filming 3D. You're building a 3D model?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. From churches to federal buildings to townships to
shopping centers.
Anything. Anything that your virtual twin, because that's what it's called, your virtual twin could benefit down in the future. And it's about capturing things that at the current today are not important, but maybe in 5 years, I would love to have that picture from 5 years ago for insurance claim, for malfunctions, for anything. So this, we still don't know the full extent of that, but there's benefits. It's much more than just taking a picture.
Would you consider, let's say there's a 20-story building being built, it's concrete, the every floor has been built. The structure is there. They're about to close the wall. So that it's aluminum partitions. And I'm thinking the electricity, the piping, all the systems, before you close the walls, take some pictures. So in 3 years, if you need to drill a hole to get to that water, that roof drain,
exactly
within an inch. Yep. Oh, wow. So many opportunities.
Absolutely.
You work with developers and builders?
But it all comes back down to the frequency of the scan. So once you take your first scan, you give birth to your digital twin. Then afterwards, how often do you update it? So you can scan every day. Is there a value to it? It's
no.
It's every time. But
structure before you close the walls, after you've closed the walls, and then when it's finished, or something like that.
Project-based. That old building in the old port had a $160 million 5-year project calendar. So floor plans were significant. Different projects would be on the same floor using, one would be using a version of the plan that was 10 years ago. One would be using the new one. So they would all update different versions. So now you're all working with the same thing. Your customers, your project managers, your architect, your maintenance team are all using accurate floor plan, the same version. And
you can just have layers, the plumbing layer, the HVAC layer, and all this, but at least everybody's working with the same set.
Exactly. So it all comes back down to the frequency of the scan. So you can scan, or basic customers are going to be 4 times a year, every season. So you see the evolution of your building from outside, because you can scan indoor and outdoor, LiDAR too. And so you see the evolution of your building through the melting of the snow. You see the evolution when it dries up. You see water.
You see that water stain.
So you see a lot of things that right now might not be important, but AI is going to pick it up. He's going to say, hey, time to start tracking about that. Keep an eye on that. And it's just going to kindly remind you until you go, okay, I cannot ignore that anymore. And I should have listened to it earlier. It's just about providing a different point of view. This is what AI is all about. It's not the ultimate answer. It's just a different point of view. Are you going to consider it in your variables? Because all you're doing is mitigating the risk of that ultimate frustration. So the more you can put in factors that mitigate that risk, the more you gain back control over your evenings. And coming back to property management, you don't buy a property to manage a spreadsheet and to answer calls at 2 a.m.
No.
You buy that to build your wealth, and you're not going to be building wealth through managing 2 a.m. phone calls.
No. Again, I love the fact that you've used the word, the frustrations. And to me, that's sign of an entrepreneur who's like, if people are frustrated, there is a problem to fix and I can come up with a solution.
I've lived through it. I'm not building that platform just to make money. I've lived through that frustration. I've wasted my nights and my sleep. It cost me my sleep. So I'm to all the property management out there. This is not a gimmicky thing. I've just learned from all of my mistake, consolidated in a platform, so you don't have to make that mistake. So you can buy back your time. It's truly that.
And again, I'm thinking of developers, builders right now, where I'm like, this should be a service that's provided. You're doing a 20-floor tower. Hey, We're going to come and scan twice throughout the build. You will know where everything is. And we give you this to the building owner. So whoever is the management,
To the bank, to the
bank, to all this, to show, no, we did it properly. And if 2 years from now, actually for insurance, as a maintenance plan in terms of risk mitigation, man, you're onto something here. I like it.
It's a virtually certified building.
Yeah.
Inspections are the norm when you buy.
Yeah.
Maybe a virtual
scan should be as well. Maybe one day will be.
Maybe one day, but now we're just exploring. It's just true.
Yeah.
How do I remove that, mitigate the risk of that re-happening again?
So you're going to have to be the leader of that industry. Huh? You've started.
But there's many others. But I'm just, the cake, coming back to one of your questions with entrepreneur. I'm just exploring cakes. I'm just eating cakes that are way too big for me to eat alone. So I'm sharing spoons out now at the moment. And please come and eat the cake. But the only thing I ask when you eat my cake is give me feedback.
Yeah.
How can I improve? How can this make it better?
How do I make the slice more optimal? How do the taste, the shape, it's a
give
very
me your
good point.
feedback.
Yeah.
So I it's not about selling. It's about getting these feedbacks, Lou.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay, Laurent, I could continue this for way longer than when we can. You will come back on the show to let us know about all this. And I want to dive next time more into your story and how you got there. I think you have a lot of wisdom to share when it comes to entrepreneurial and the hard lessons that you've learned. However, if people want to find out more about you, what's the best way to get in touch?
First, thank you again for the opportunity. I think LinkedIn is going to be the best way.
Perfect.
If you're just all I do, I've planted this was a great opportunity. I've planted a lot of seeds throughout my life and in this podcast. If I've learned a significant amount through other people's book and knowledge and podcasts. So if anything has resonated with somebody and that sparked a little, I was meant to think about that. Then I'm delighted. I'm glad. I'm humbled by that opportunity. So if they want to reach out, LinkedIn is the best way. Come and say hi. I'm always delighted to geek out on a new project and give my 2 cents or free scan your building, because we're in that platform where we're just evolving it. Yeah. So all I care about is the feedback, honest feedback. It works. It doesn't work. I like it. I don't like it. Mm-hmm. That's how we improve. So LinkedIn, for the moment, I answer all of my DMs directly. And that's where my Calendly is still available. And please book. Please,
Laurent, I could continue for so long. Thank you very much for coming and share your life experience and how you got there today. It's really inspiring. So we'll have to continue.
Thank you.
For all those who are listening, as usual, share this episode with a friend who's in the middle of a build or someone who's got some rental properties and some significant ones. And even in the commercial space, and be like, hey, maybe we should get a scan. It'll make it better for later for maintenance and for insurance. And God knows that's difficult right now. So keep listening to the show, research your market, make some offers, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.